It's Sports Night at Noble's from Noble's Restaurant in the South Park area of Charlotte. Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Rosinski. Glad you're with us. The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, our special guest a little bit later on in the show. But joining us right now, the fine columnist, sports columnist for the Charlotte Observer. He's been writing for that newspaper for 25 years, Tom Sorenson. Tom, thanks for being with us.
It's an honor.
Wow. Coming from you, that's an honor.
No, it's an honor to be on with Flair.
With Ric Flair, right. 25 years, and you actually came to Charlotte. You were a news guy, news reporter.
I'd meant to go into sports out of college, but mainly I wanted a job. So I covered government, I covered school boards, did investigative work. I just wanted to work. I wanted to get paid. I didn't want a real job. And then this was my first sports job. I saw an ad, an editor, and published it that said one of the best and biggest papers in the Southeast is looking for a sports writer who knows more than the final score. I thought it was Miami because at that point I thought Miami was in the South. I was in Minneapolis. And came down and just fell in love with the place and never left.
When did you become a columnist?
I think I was a reporter for 3 or 4 years, and just things fell together, and it was fortuitous, and they needed a columnist, and I wanted it, and I think I've been a columnist for about 20 years.
And a columnist, you're asked to give opinions. It's your opinion. When you're a reporter, for the most part, you're giving facts. Rarely can you get into why you think what happened. It's basically, you're reporting who, what, when, where, why, all that stuff.
Theoretically.
Theoretically. And maybe that's changed in the business, I guess.
Nah, but you know what? I mean, I remember covering a fire in my first job, and there were about 8 of us for a huge fire. And none of us were pro-fire or anti-fire, but all our stories were different. And some it was like this raging inferno, and some it was like a little bonfire. It just depends what you see and who you talk to and what your perspective is. People think there's this inherent bias that people are pro-North Carolina or anti-North Carolina or pro-Amato, which would be tough, or anti-Amato. But it really, I mean, most of the reporters I know are objective. You just see things differently. With a columnist, you have the license and really the obligation just to, the way I try to write is just like you step up and say it. It's like having a beer with somebody and saying, here's what I think.
You were recently in New York to cover Calvin Brock, and if the fans don't know who he is, he hails from Charlotte, North Carolina, went to UNC Charlotte. He's the boxing banker, and he fought Vladimir Klitschko for the heavyweight champion. Klitschko. I've been to a number of fights. I know what that atmosphere is like. What was it like in New York for that fight?
I loved it. I mean, I'll go to the Super Bowl. I'll go to the Final Four probably. I will not have more fun at an assignment because it was sort of introducing people to big-time boxing. And it was big time. I mean, it was Madison Square Garden. It was the ghosts of Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali, and Ali was there for his daughter's fight. It was, Sugar Ray Robinson fought there. Everybody fought there, Lennox Lewis. And it was just, it built all week long. And Klitschko is a classy guy. He's got a PhD. And he is the one really good heavyweight right now in boxing. And Brock, I've known him since he was 15. He fought in our gyms. He went to our high schools. He graduated from Charlotte. And for him to be on that kind of stage was just, I thought, inherently compelling. And I think people got excited about it. I did. I mean, I loved being there. Klitschko won, and he won easily. But Brock fought hard. He got knocked down, and somehow he got up. He kept going, and he just lost to a better guy. But he knows now what it's like to be in with the very best.
Do you find yourself at an event like that, or say the Super Bowl when the Panthers played New England, pulling for the home team, or do you care?
I pull for the best story. I mean, I'm greedy. I pull for what's best for me. I wanted Brock to win because if he had won to be the heavyweight champion, he comes back here, there's a parade. McCrory knows his name. I mean, it's just a big deal. And with the Panthers, if they had upset New England in the Super Bowl, that would have been the best story. But, sometimes the best story is that the home team loses.
Yes, which has gone on a lot around here in recent days.
Basketball, everybody but Ric Flair.
and talk about, because you and Rick grew up very close to each other in Minnesota.
Well, Rick grew up in a really affluent suburb called Golden Valley. I grew up in the streets. I grew up in the city per se. So you would think he'd be the sports writer and I'd be the wrestler. But you'd be wrong. You'd be really, really wrong. Now, I've known him forever. He's just a genuine guy. He really cares about people. And the only guy I've seen as good as he is with his fans is Richard Petty. In terms of autographs, posing for pictures. I went into a bar with him once, and it was like Klitschko in the Ukraine. I mean, he was huge, and he just is a gracious, guy who's never forgotten where he came from, which was a really affluent suburb of Minneapolis.
All right, now, you went to a wrestling training camp as a reporter to see what it was like. Tell me that story.
I just wanted to see what it was like, and it was in this nondescript building you'd never find in Atlanta. It was tucked away. And they worked me. And those ropes, you think they're padded? Man, they're like razors. And I had this finishing hold called the deadline. And I had another hold called the retraction. I mean, I had a future. If I were a little bit bigger and 30 years younger, I'm in the squared circle right now.
Have you ever, talk about the columns you've written. Was there one out there that got maybe a reaction that you didn't expect, or one that totally surprised you?
There are two in the last year. One was about, there's a school in Conover that is for kids with special needs, some of whom are severely handicapped. And they had a fundraising drive for playground equipment. And it had to be special stuff because these kids can get hurt easily. And I've never done this before, but I wrote a column trying to help them raise money. And they had some, and they ended up raising $100,000. And I went there and just watched these kids go down the slides and play with these toys. And I was just moved. And I wrote a column, and people were gracious. A different response was when what's the hockey team in Raleigh?
The Carolina Hurricanes.
They won the Smith Cup, the Stanley Cup.
Stanley Cup.
And I tried to put it in perspective and just said, we kept writing it was a major championship, and it wasn't, because the NHL no longer, Bill, is a major sport. And so I just tried to put it in perspective. And I ranked the events that were more important. The bass fishing tournament that was here, 4 of Flair's titles, Independence High School. And man, I got so much grief. I had no idea how many angry people there are in Raleigh and I was getting hate mail from Calgary.
Well, I think I sent some of that hate mail because I'm a big hockey fan and I think it's a big-time sport. But that's why you're a columnist. You've recently written about Jake Delhomme. When you write a column calling for a change of quarterback to go to Chris Weinke, do you write it to write it? Do you believe it?
Oh, I have to believe. If you don't believe it, because you're going to get so much grief, you have to believe it. You can write things for a fact, but your credibility will be trashed over time and should be. Now, I believe right now that I thought at that point that the Panthers had a better chance to win with Chris Weinke, who also is from Minnesota, along with Prince and the replacements, than with Jake Delhomme. So I wrote it, and yeah, people were not pleased. They should have been pleased, but they weren't pleased.
What's the most exciting event you've ever been to?
Boy, that's tough. My first Super Bowl was just mesmerizing because I had no idea how big it was, the scope of it, all the attendant things. But also covering, there's a guy named Calvin Seabrooks, who is the last boxing champion from Charlotte. And going with him to Atlantic City and just watching this guy who fought like a 5'5" John Wayne win the title was something.
Tom Sorenson, Charlotte Observer sports columnist. Tom, thanks for your time. Always enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
When we come back, Sports Night at Nobles continues with the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Stay right there. If you enjoy looking sharp at the office or on those special occasions, be sure to visit DW Designs Custom Clothiers. We offer the finest designs and fabrics for custom tailored apparel for men and women. Stylish ready-made designs are also available for men. We also carry a complete line of accessories, including neckwear, cufflinks, handbags, jewelry, and men's shoes. Make DW Designs your first stop when looking for apparel that will define your personal style statement. At the corner of 5th Street and Tryon on the 2nd floor of the historic Ivies building.
Relax and let your thoughts drift away in a Stressless, the ultimate recliner. Designed to support you perfectly in any position. Relax your body, free your mind in a Stressless.
Come, experience Stressless at Inbo Furniture in Cornelius.
You don't have to be this fit to read Charlotte Health and Fitness magazine, but let Charlotte Health and Fitness magazine help you maximize your active lifestyle. Every month, CHF readers enjoy features on the best places to get fit, look great, and have fun. CHF is now available for home or office delivery. For a limited time, visit chfmag.com and sign up to receive your complimentary copy today.
Shopping for electronic gear? What do you look for?
I want a plasma TV, but I don't want to buy something today that's obsolete tomorrow. TV standards are changing every day. That's why our certified product specialists stay up to date with the latest technology.
I want brand names I'm familiar with.
At a great price.
Queen City only carries the top-rated, most reliable brand names, all backed by our low price guarantee. The best selection, service, and price is only at Queen City. Why buy anywhere else?
Sports Night at Nobles is brought to you by DW Design Custom Clothiers, embracing one's individuality. And also by Inbo Furniture, Scandinavian and contemporary design.
Welcome back to Sports Night at Nobles. His first match was in December of 1972. 34 years later, he is still one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling. We welcome to our show the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Rick,
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you.
Thank you.
And as we tape this show, you're coming off a bloody Monday Night Raw. What's it feel like after a night like that?
Actually, it's not as bad as it looks. It's let me put it like this: I've been worse for wear. I'm fine. You know, it's one of the, it goes with the territory of being with the WWE.
Are you surprised that here you are in your fourth decade in wrestling and you're still going strong? I mean, most sports.
Yeah, everybody's surprised. I just heard Mike talking about 10 years in the NFL. I've got 34 in the AWA, NWA, and WCW, and now WWE. It's been a phenomenal ride. I've been gifted. I've been blessed in the fact that I haven't had a lot of injuries that are career-ending type things, knees, elbows. I've hurt my neck a couple times, and I broke my back in an airplane crash. But I healed up from that, and I'm knock on wood, I feel like $1 million. It's a gift, and I'm going to ride it out as long as it'll hold together.
Let's talk about your life because it is fascinating because you grew up in Minnesota.
Yes.
But you were a black market baby. You were stolen out of a hospital.
Yeah.
And your folks who adopted you, they told you were adopted.
Yes. Yeah. They didn't tell me to that, though, until I was probably in my late teens. You know, and I still didn't understand it. That just kind of came into play when we started writing that book. And the author wanted to do a lot of research. So my mom had all the stuff and all the records and that. And it's really the first time I've ever dealt with it or thought about it. It's nothing that bothers me. It's a kind of an interesting story because it was a ongoing issue in Tennessee at that time. But you know, I'm no worse for wear either, so I'm fine.
So you grew up in Minnesota, and I guess you wanted to go to Michigan, but that didn't work out?
You've been doing your homework, yeah. Yeah, I sure did. I got recruited by Bump Elliott, and you know, went on a recruiting trip there, went on 4 other different trips, Iowa, Nebraska, ironically, and a couple smaller schools, and I decided on Michigan, and then my academic advisor, I was at a private school, would not write a letter of recommendation. And that's all I needed to get in. After being there for 4 years, I'll never forget, his name was Dave Fierke. He would not write a letter saying that he thought that I could maintain, you know, the 1.7 grade average. In Michigan, you know, obviously a little bit stronger academically than some of the other Big Ten schools, but that was it. So I ended up going to Minnesota. I mean, I missed all the recruiting opportunities there, but I ended up going as what they call a non-predictor my freshman year. Freshmen weren't playing football at that time. It was just, you know, sophomore, junior, and senior, and the rest is history.
Yeah, but you didn't stay in school.
No, I was there for a year
and
and a
then
half.
I understand you were like selling insurance.
Sold life
I can't
insurance.
imagine you knocking on my front door.
Yeah, either could I.
But I thought, from what I read, you were pretty good at it.
Yeah, well, after taking the test 3 times, I finally got my license. What happened is I knew so many people, you know, growing up in Charlotte. You know, I think every young guy that gets in the insurance business calls all his friends, you know, I got a deal, got to have a $10,000 policy, man. So I actually did pretty good my first year. I probably made like $40,000, which was like a lot of money to be making at 21 years of age in 1970. So it was pretty cool.
And you were a bouncer too?
Yeah, at George's in the Park. As a matter of fact, one of the great stories, I don't know if I told it in my book or not, is I was there one night when Don Meredith, Cosell, and Frank Gifford came in. Yeah, one of the first games I think they ever did, and they came in. And I mean, I look at that. It's funny that we're talking about that because I watch that show now, and I'm thinking, how does anybody in God's green earth look at that cast now and go back to Dandy Don, you know, to Don Meredith and Gifford and Howard Cosell? They were so such great characters and so strong in their commentary.
Talk about how you got involved in wrestling, because I know you ended up hooking up with Vern Gagne.
Yes.
And he had you got to tell the story about going to this wrestling camp and training, because
Yeah.
you walked out of there a couple of times.
Quit twice. I was actually working the back door at George's in the park, and when I in walked this great big guy, not overly tall, 6'2", but over 300 pounds. I said, God, I've seen him before somewhere. Big head of curly hair, and I started looking at him, and I said, God, that's Ken Patera, who had been the first man ever in the history of the world to lift 500 pounds over his head at a weightlifting competition in Oregon. And I read I was back, and then I was reading their weightlifting magazines and really wanted to be, bigger and stronger, and was really, conscious of all those people. And so I'm watching him, and I thought, God, he orders a double vodka, and he's smoking a Salem cigarette. I said, that can't be Ken Patera. He's the world's strongest man. So I walked over to him. I go, is your name Ken Patera? He said, yeah. Why? Just wanted to know, man. So anyway, from that night, we became close friends. I ended up moving in with him. And he moved to Minneapolis from Portland because he had made a deal with Vern Gagne. If Vern would sponsor him while he trained for the '72 Olympics in Munich. And when he came back from Munich, hopefully with a gold medal, which was not out of the question at that point in time, he'd become a pro wrestler, and that would be very similar to the arrangement that Vince had with Kurt Angle. But Kurt did come back with a gold medal. So Ken came back 6 weeks before the Olympics.